Thank you. Brooke Goldstein, I want to pick up on what you said about BDS. What do you think is the most effective way to counter BDS, especially on college campuses in America?
Look, I think that there needs to be a complete paradigm shift in the Jewish community and our way of thought and the way that we communicate. First of all, I wish this panel was called, empowering the Jewish community to enforce their civil rights, not can anti-Semitism be stopped. And it's anything as small as using the terminology, using the acronym BDS. Why don't we just call it illegal commercial discrimination, racism, using terminology like two-state solution. Creating another Islamist state in a sea of failed Islamic dictatorships is not a solution to anything. Using terminology like settlement. What's a Jewish settlement? This isn't 1920 Russia. There are Jewish homes, there are Jewish villages, and anybody who says that a Jewish home is an obstacle to peace is advocating for a Judenrein Islamist Palestinian state. So we have to change our terminology. Number two, we have to encourage, and I know that the story of Purim was mentioned earlier as well by Judah, we have to encourage Zionist pride. Zionism is the oldest, the original national liberation movement of the world's oldest ethnic minority, the Jewish people. It is the original civil rights movement. It's a civil rights movement that inspired almost all other civil rights movements. We invented intersectionality. We were marching hand in hand with African Americans as they were marching in the 1950s for their rights. And Zionism is a progressive value. So any shunning of that term, and we have to empower the Jewish community. And finally, also, how do we defeat it? The one thing that I've learned in my career is that no matter how anti-Semitic you are, you will always act in your own best interest, in your own self-interest. So we have to make it in the self-interest of those people who we are targeting, so to speak, to discontinue their targeting of Jews. Case in point, Rutgers University, when they hosted the flotilla movement and they did a fundraiser for US to Gaza, Baka, Code Pink, all groups that are connected to the foreign designated terrorist group Hamas. The Jewish community were writing letters, we were doing press releases, we were writing articles about how very angry we were that Rutgers University was hosting this anti-Semitic movement. And of course, the president said, free speech, free speech. I'm not going to get into the fallacy of that argument, but that's what he was resting his laurels on. Well, we wrote him a nice 35-page letter telling him no matter how much he loves the flotilla movement, if he releases 1 penny of those funds, he now is on notice that they will go to a designated terrorist group, and he personally risks spending up to 22 years in jail. Well, lo and behold, none of the money was released, and they were never invited back on campus again.